Lisa, and I'd like to welcome you to Callers Chat, an online space that I've created for callers to chat about all things calling. Today, I am delighted to welcome to our stage someone who has known me since I was tiny, the fabulous Barry Goodman. He's a fantastic caller. He's called at many festivals, ceilidh series all over the country, and he also helps to run a regular ceilidh series, Unicorn Ceilidhs in Baldock in Hertfordshire. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Barry.
Thank you, Lisa. Nice to see so many people here, at least a couple of faces I recognise very well and one or two more that I think I recognise from across a dance floor somewhere. So thanks for coming tonight. And can you all hear me first of all? All okay? Fantastic, great stuff. Okay, so yes, I'm Barry Goodman. I have been calling for dancing, gosh, since probably the late 80s, I should think. And I've been calling for ceilidhs, actual ceilidhs, sort of ceilidh series and festival ceilidhs since the early 2000s, about 2004, I think. So about 20 years or so of doing that sort of stuff. And I got my own band, or I had my own band. We don't really do very much these days. I used to call and play with the band, which was a lot of fun, and all the usual weddings and parties and this, that and the other. But this is not about weddings and parties and this, that and the other. This is about regular ceilidh series, because the question was about planning a programme. How do you plan a programme for a regular ceilidh series? What are the issues? So all ceilidh series are different. That's the first thing. They're not all the same. They're all different. Some have got a high proportion of experienced dancers in the audience. Others attract beginners and people who've never been to a ceilidh before. At Unicorn Ceilidhs, which is our local one, the one that I helped to run, we had what we call the meet-up group effect, where various local meet-up groups would target that as their thing for the week, or for the month, or whatever it might be, and we'd get like 15 people turning up that we'd never seen before, who would have a marvellous time. And then some of them would bring their friends the next time. And so we started to develop an audience through that, which was rather nice. But it does mean that there's a lot of people there who are not necessarily regular dancers. They need a lot of help. But we've also got experienced dancers, people that have been coming to ceilidhs for a long time. Some have been coming to our ceilidhs for a long time. And of course, the bands that you book very often attract people from a distance as well. So you get people who are regular ceilidh goers who come along to a ceilidh. So there is a difference. There's a lot of different things that happen at ceilidhs. I remember going to Oxfolk once, and there was a hen party there. And there must have been, I don't know, 20 people that turned up in hen party garb with all the sashes and everything. And they came along and they danced for about half an hour, and they watched the spot. Then they did another dance, and they all got in the limos and went off to the next club. And that was just amazing, but quite a challenge for the caller, it has to be said. So that sort of thing happens as well, in birthday parties and so on. So all ceilidh series are different. All bands are different too. Now, those of you, I'm sure you've all worked with bands, worked with live music, so you'll know. But some bands do actually like to have a planned program. I always provide a plan. I always provide a program. It's the one thing that I've always done ever since I started calling, is provide the band with a program. And some bands really like that, and they say thanks ever so much because we can plan beforehand. Some bands, they say, well, actually, we like to be a bit more organic than that, and sort of look at the audience and decide what we're going to do, and that's also fine. But at least they've got a list of what sort of things are going to be expected of them. Most bands can be pretty flexible with the number of times through and speed of playing. But there are some bands, and I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, who have sequenced music, sequenced tunes. Some of them have got big arrangements, and they really, really don't like to do it at any other number of times through than the number of times that it says in the arrangement, or that it's got that is in the sequencing. And you have to be very careful of that. And it's really worth checking with the band beforehand to make sure, to see if there's anything like that going on. Because, you know, if they really want to play something 9 times through, then you have to choose a dance that's going to go 9 times through. So you're either going to do something that's going to be a Sicilian circle or whatever, or you're going to do a 3-couple dance 3 times through or something like that. But you've got to be ready for that. The playing style as well can influence how you plan your program. Some bands a very sort of, stompy English country music, polka style. Other bands play very fast. There's one or two bands that I know who play exceedingly quickly, and no matter how much I ask them to slow down, they can't. So I have to plan a program that's going to be suitable for the stuff that I know is going to happen on the stage, and that's really helpful. Now, obviously, if you don't know the band already, it's really worth getting to know them. One way of doing it is to ask for a repertoire. A lot of bands will do that. They'll send you a list of what they play, of the different tune types, how many of each they've got, which is really, really handy. Because obviously, if you come across a band that's got 3 48-bar jigs but no step hops, then that's going to affect the way that you plan your program considerably. The style and the number of tunes that they've got can definitely make a difference. And you can look at YouTube's. There's a lot of bands have got a bit of YouTube that you can take a look at and get an idea of how they play. A lot of bands have got on their websites some audio clips. Some of them have got little bits of video of them doing weddings and that sort of thing, and you can get a feeling for the sort of band that they are, which will then help you. It'll help to inform how you plan the program for the night. It's also worth checking who is the person in the band who is in charge of tune selection. You might call them the band leader. It might just be the person who does all the working out beforehand. And sometimes it's not the person you expect it to be. There's quite a lot of bands, well, not quite a lot. There's a few bands where the person that I contact, who is the person who does all the bookings and stuff, and you do all the contracts and things with, is actually not the person who does all those tunes. It's somebody completely different, and it's worth knowing that, because you need to liaise with them on the night. Because even if you've got a program, which I always do, you're not necessarily going to. You might swap things around. You might even decide to put one or two things in that aren't there. So you need to be having that conversation, and you need to be close enough to that person on stage to be able to have those conversations, and also to do the 2 more times through. Last time, thank you very much, or whatever. Or can we have another B there because they're a bit slow? Let's have another. And that's those sorts of things that you might need to talk to somebody about. So make sure you know who's in charge. Obviously, when you've worked with a band a number of times, you get used to their repertoire and style. But some bands are continually developing their repertoire and putting new tunes in. So again, it's really worth finding out what their current repertoire is if you haven't worked with them for a while, just so that you've got and they'll usually happily tell you that they've got 3 more tunes now, and they've got and they're really developing this particular bit of their repertoire. There's certainly a band that I know locally who were delighted to tell me they've got another 2 48-bar jigs in their repertoire, and which delighted me as well, it has to be said. So those sorts of things are worth knowing. It's also worth knowing which tunes a band really likes to play. What are the favourites? What are the ones that are the standout tunes? Which are the ones that are going to sell the CD or whatever? Sometimes they like to put those near the end, so it's worth knowing which ones they are, so that you can program those tunes to fit the dances at that particular point. Also, there are some bands that have tunes that work really well with particular dances. You've seen the Melrose the Melrose Quintet doing Nottingham Swing to Dominion of the Sword. That's the sort of thing that you go along to a Melrose Ceilidh and you go, I'm going to be doing Nottingham Swing to Dominion of the Sword, and it's going to be bloody marvellous. And that's the sort of thing that some bands can do. They've got. I remember when the committee band had a fabulous tune for Cornish 6-hand reel. Absolutely brilliant Italian jiggy thing for Cornish 6-hand reel. And it was just, you had to do it. You had to do that dance because you had to have that tune. So those sorts of things are things that you might know about or find out about, particular tunes that bands like to play for particular dances, and then make sure that those dances are there, or if those actual dances aren't going to be in your program, alternatives that are similar in style so that they'll work in the same way. So I always like to plan a program for events. Weddings and parties tend to follow the same format. If I'm doing a wedding or a party, which I don't do very much these days, but if I'm doing one of those, I've got a set of dances that largely work, and it tends to be much the same one because you're not going to meet the same people again. So largely, I just keep to the same program. Swap a dance in every now and then just to keep it fresh for myself. But largely, I don't have to worry too much about that. Regular Kelly series offer different challenges, but I find them a lot more fun to plan. Bearing in mind there'll probably be a number of regular ceilidh dancers in the audience, I like to include a few ceilidh favourites like Clopton Bridge, Old Swan Gallop, Boston Tea Party, Barley Break, Do-Si-Do Square, those sorts of dances that you're going to come across at a lot of ceilidhs, festival ceilidhs and ceilidh series. And ceilidh dancers like to dance the dances that they know, but they don't want to spend a whole evening dancing the dances that they know. They want to have some other stuff thrown in as well. So I like to have a few more unusual dances in the programme as well, which may not be familiar to all the people out there, but are going to be enjoyable to dance. Sometimes those are dances that I've written, and I've written a lot of dances for specific reasons. Sometimes because I'm doing a family barn dance somewhere and I want a simple dance, and then that's kind of worked in a particular way that I particularly like to use that in a particular part of a ceilidh. Sometimes I've written more sort of complicated dances, and those sometimes work very well at ceilidhs as well. So some of the dances are mine, but a lot of them are dances that I've seen at ceilidhs or danced at ceilidhs and have taken my fancy. Examples, Subscription Square by Pete Reese. Fabulous dance. Nice complex 48 bar square that I danced probably first at a Unicorn Ceilidh, where before I was actually involved in Unicorn Ceilidhs, Paul Scourfield's band was playing Chalktown, and Pete Reese was calling, and they did this dance, and I thought, that's a great dance, I love it, but I hadn't written it down. So fortunately, Paul had recorded part of the ceilidh, and the bit that had Subscription Square in it, with me dancing in the set, was one of the things that he'd recorded. So I learnt that one from YouTube, having danced it myself previously, and it's a brilliant dance, and it's a bit different. There's a dance called The Odd Chain. Some of you might have come across. It was a workshop dance. It was a workshop led by Dave Hunt. And the dance was written by a committee who were Lynn Render, Graham Taylor, Phil Davis, Hannah Bright and Jane Bird, some of whom you will know. And that's a really great dance, which involves having a grand chain that goes the wrong way around the set. And it's, again, it's an interesting dance to stick into a program. There's Numerella Jig by Liam Robinson, which is a three facing three dance, which is a really nice little dance. And of course, the new Mrs. Arrowsmith. A lot of you will come across that. Gordon Potts' fabulous dance, the new Mrs. Arrowsmith, which I was actually there on the day that when he first produced that dance. This is a new dance, so I'm going to try it out. And since then, it's become quite a popular one. And there's a lovely dance called Suffocation. The Suffolk being Suffolk, the county, Suffolk, and then Ation at the end of it, written by a chap called Ron Coxall, who I happen to know, although I didn't know him when I learnt the dance, which is a wonderful double progression long ways dance. Very, very simple, but it just flows so well and people love it. And I've done that with everything from sort of parties and weddings to festival ceilidhs, and it always seems to go down well. So those sorts of dances, the more unusual ones, go in, as well as the ceilidh favourites. There's also, I think, remembering what I said about how audiences vary, how the makeup of the audience is likely to be quite broad. Definitely a need for some simple dances that use common figures and build the confidence of the inexperienced dancers. Sicilian circles I find are really good for this, because you can do stars, you can do circles, you can do right and left arm turns, you can do right and left throughs, those sorts of things in a Sicilian circle. And they're fairly unthreatening because you stay with your partner, you work with one couple, you move on, so you're passing on, you're dancing with other people, but you're still dancing with the same partner. You're not losing the partner, and those dances are nice and repetitive, and you can teach those figures to the inexperienced dancers very easily with a couple of well-chosen Sicilians of that sort, which I usually find quite useful. I always think it's worth introducing those common figures at the beginning of the evening, I'm sure you'd agree. You know, even if whatever sort of dance you're calling for, wedding party or a regular ceilidh series or even a festival ceilidh, because it's a warm up. It's a chance to get on the floor and do something. And even if you're an experienced dancer, doing a couple of dances with nice simple figures to start with gets you into the mood, gets you into the feel of the thing, gets you starting to improvise if you're a regular ceilidh dancer, and so on. So I like to make sure that I've got some simple dances with common figures in there. When planning a program, the other thing that I try to do is to mix up the tune types. So, and again, I'm sure that you as callers will do that as well. It's an obvious thing to do. You don't want to put 3 jigs in a row and 3 polkas in a row and so on. Swap it around a bit. Make sure that you've got plenty of variety in there. Gives the band a chance to show off as well, which is good. So I always make sure that I mix up the tune types. And when planning a program, I'll do my original plan. Then I'll start looking at what I've done, looking at the tune types, making sure that I have got, and if I haven't, swapped them around a bit, or maybe if that dance isn't going to work in that particular place, we'll put something else in with the right sort of tune type there, so that we're not doing the same sort of dance, the same sort of tunes dance after dance. I also try this is the thing that I'm a bit obsessive about, is common figures, particularly stars. You start looking at the dances that you're programming, and you look at each one and you go, oh yeah, that's got a star at the beginning, that one's got a star that one's got a star in the middle, oh, that's got a star chain, oh yeah, there's a right and left hand star in that one. And you start to see every flipping dance has got a star in it somewhere. And then that's the point where I go, right, that one's out, that one's out, that one's out. We'll put some dances without stars in, just so that there's a variety, because otherwise it does get a bit tedious. So that is a thing about which I'm a little bit obsessive, as I say. So that's the way that I sort of go about planning a program. Now I've got an example here. This is a dance that I did at Oxfolk with Banter a couple of years ago now, and it's just an example of the way that I do. I'm going to share the screen now. So as I said, really it's just exemplifying what I was talking about. So that's a sort of mix. So I've got jigs and polkas and jigs and step ups and polkas and blah blah blah. My ones with stars, I put a little star next to it. How how creative is that? So that I do actually know what's what. And then the other thing that I talked about was, of course, the other thing, I suppose it seemed so obvious I didn't mention it, but of course the other thing is mixing up the types of dances as well. But you would do that anyway. You wouldn't be doing lots of long ways together and lots of squares together. But there's the mixture there as well. And what was I going to say? Yeah, so and the range of dances. So we've got some of my dances there. Woodford Square is one of mine. Benslow Gardens is one of mine. Old Town Hall. Some from other people. Cat Kelly's Six Hand Reel, and Mark's Hall Frolic, which is a lovely dance, which was written by somebody else. And then there's some well-known dances: Cornish Six, Girlfriend Square Eights. And something a little bit off the wall, Money in Both Pockets, Playford dance. Well, it's not actually Playford, but it's old in the Playford style. Rosa, because if you're going to do a waltz, you might as well do a waltz everybody can do, and that's nice. And Do-Si-Do Square and Clockton Bridge. So there's ceilidh favourites. There's unusual dances. There's some I've written myself. And there are some simple ones in there as well. Things like Old Swan Gallop, for example, which is nice, easy. Westfield Four Stars are really easy dance. So is Woodford Square. So they're the ones that are going to teach the figures. So that was basically what I was talking about, and that's the way that I do it. So yes, so that's the things that I do to plan that program. So other things about regular ceilidh series. If you're calling it a regular ceilidh, it's worth finding out the timings beforehand, find out whether there's a spot. If there's a spot, are you introducing it? Are you seeing it out as well? Are you topping and tailing? Advertise future dances, ones that you're involved in, ones that the ceilidh series are doing, and other people that are there who've got dances to advertise. Plug the raffle, because that's part of your income as a caller. Make sure you thank the organisers and the band publicly at the end of the evening. and give the band a mention regularly throughout the gig, remembering to plug any merchandise that they've got as well. All those things, a ceilidh series, it's the sort of thing that you need to be thinking about. And although, if you're out there and you're a dancer and you hear it going on, you go, oh yeah, that's obvious. When you're actually up there with the microphone, it's not always the thing that you remember. There's other stuff that's going on as well. So making sure you got a little note to yourself to say, do this, do that. It's not a bad thing especially if you're haven't done a lot of regular ceilidh series. One more thing. Although it's likely that there'll be plenty of people in the audience who've done some of the dances before, I think it's really important to walk through each dance as if it's the first time that they've done it, or the first time for everybody. It's easy to assume that people don't need to do the walkthrough and just go through the motions, even with the simplest dances, even with the most common dances. But there are going to be some people out there who don't know it. And there are going to be some people out there who are slightly confused by it. And I think it's really important that you walk it through. I always do twice. Even a well-known dance, I always walk it through twice, and call it through at least twice as well when the band starts playing. And the most important thing of all is making it sound interesting. It's so easy when you're going through a dance that to say, so right hand star, then a left hand star, yeah, the do-si-do partner, yeah, then top couple down at the bottom, and start all over again. I would much rather say, and that's a right hand star, and the next thing you're going to do, let's do left hand star. Okay, face your neighbour. Make it energetic, make it enthusiastic, because energy and enthusiasm are the things that ceilidhs are all about. I did a dance on Saturday. It was a social dance. It was for a local dance club. So it wasn't a ceilidh. It was English social dance and contra. And one of the organisers afterwards said to me that he loved my calling because it was clear and energetic. And I do think that energy coming from the caller produces energy from the dance floor. And if you just do it the way that it is because you know the dance so well and everybody's getting really bored out there, they're not going to do it in that kind of way. So I think it's really important. Energy and enthusiasm are the keys, I think, to a successful ceilidh, together with clear calling and a great band. What could possibly go wrong? So I hope this talk's been useful and perhaps has raised questions that you would like to talk about with each other or put to me later. Thanks, Lisa, for inviting me. Thanks to you for coming along and listening.